Hello, welcome to NAMI Maryland's 39th Annual Conference. My name is Linda Weinberg, and I am a board member of NAMI Maryland. And I will be the moderator for this session, which is called Housing Options and Resources, Opening the Door to Recovery. And our speaker today is going to be Russ Springham. He's a licensed social worker, and he is the housing coordinator for the Clinical Services Division Office of Evidence-Based Practice, Housing and Recovery Support at the Maryland Behavioral Health Administration. We will be addressing questions at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions as the presentation continues, please post them to the social wall on the right-hand side of your screen. We will be reviewing the questions as they come in, and if something is unclear, we'll get back to you. At this time, I'd like to just welcome Russ and let him start to speak to us on this very important topic. Russ?
Thanks, Linda. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It has been 2 years since I did the NAMI conference, and I hope that we've updated the PowerPoint and information as things have changed over the last couple of years. We're all coping with the pandemic, and housing remains an important topic to everybody. So you can see my title there and the title of our thing. I'm going to just move on to there we go. I'm just getting the hang of the PowerPoint on the live stream here. So just a brief overview. I work for the Behavioral Health Administration. We oversee public system, mental health, and substance use services. The core service agencies, local addiction authorities, and local behavioral health authorities are our arm in the community in all the counties and Baltimore City. Administrative Service Organization currently is Optum, Maryland, and they do the service authorization and claims payment. Current housing resources, and this is what we're really going to cover today, is residential programs and permanent housing. These are two types of housing. Residential programs, residential rehabilitation, is primarily for persons with serious mental illnesses, which I do a lot of work with. And then I'm going to touch on, this is new for me, but it's important, certified recovery residences in the Maryland Recovery Network. These go hand in hand, and they are both for substance use or co-occurring, because pretty much everything we do, even if it's focused more on mental health or substance use, can address persons with co-occurring, what we used to call dual diagnosis, where they have both issues are impacting their lives. Permanent housing, now that's where a person is, there's no staff involved, person is in their own residence. There's the Continuum of Care, used to be called Shelter Plus Care, for those who might remember that. Permanent supportive housing, which is a broad title, and then the housing first, and that is not the philosophy. We're not going to be discussing the philosophy of housing first, which is significant, but this is a pilot project that Behavioral Health Administration is doing. I want to give the disclaimer that there's a lot of acronyms in our world, and at least the first time you see anyone, I'm going to try and spell it out or say it out completely. And then after that, you might catch me saying the acronym. And if you don't remember it, I will certainly I'll try to say what the full name is each time. But we'll see how it goes. Okay. Well, this one, Residential Rehabilitation Programs, I am going to call this RRP. Okay. But that's what it stands for. There's about 50 of these programs statewide. Some of them are in multiple counties, so it might be not 50 companies, but it's 50 different sites in every county in Maryland. The total number of RRP beds, almost 2,500. That's how many people can be served if every bed was full. There's two different levels of care within RRP, and that pretty much goes with the staffing, how much staff is in a house, how often the staff is in the house. So RRP is a home-like supportive residential environment, but it is a program. So it is, but it's home-like, so it's good. Promotes the individual's ability to participate in the community and to recover in terms of their life, getting their life back, or to learn the skills they need. So it is all about all types of daily living skills, from managing their own symptoms to keeping track of all the various appointments they have, to learning skills of cooking and cleaning and grocery shopping and everything else. And then higher skills, budgeting, time management, other things as well. The 2 levels of care, of course, this is like the technical number of hours or times that a person is seen, but the minimum, remember, minimum standards for general level, 13 per month. Pretty much this is going to be every other day. Staff are going to be in the house. And then intensive level, even though they have minimum of 19 a month, they're in the house every day of the month and 7 days a week, and at least 40 hours in the week. However, that's divided up. And it's usually Monday to Friday, more hours than on Saturday and Sunday, but they're there on Saturday and Sunday as well. Both levels of care have the overnight, have the 24 hours a day on-call availability. That's by phone. And then we do have some in various places that are specially funded to have overnight awake support. And people are looking to stay in that for as short a period of time as possible, and then to move to the regular intensive level of care. Okay, residential rehab, or RRP, is accessed. You have the way to get into it. And this is for, let's say, an individual who needs, or the family member, you feel a family member needs, or the therapist or a doctor feels that you need, you have to submit an application for it. And that goes to the Court Service Agency or the local behavioral health authority of the county that you're from. You can be referred to another county, but you submit the application to the local authority in the county you live in or currently living in. Eligibility is determined based on the Behavioral Health Administration, that's us, BHA's priority population. This is a not an extensive list, but it is the list of the most significant diagnoses. Most of the diagnoses with schizophrenia and the more severe types of major depression or bipolar, and a handful of other diagnoses where a person's really may need the support, because some people are okay living on their own regardless, but sometimes a person really needs extra help. So then there's other medical necessity criteria as well. The local authority, the CSA or LBHA, review the applications. They do other things, tracking the vacancies, maintaining wait lists if there are them, and refer applications to beds when they're available. The application is, that's our website, and that's the spot on the website. I believe that the copies of the PowerPoint will be available, so you will be able to access that. If you can't, jot that down right at the moment, that will be available to refer back to. There are specialty programs within this, within RRP. Transition age youth. In fact, you'll see the top and the bottom one there, older adult and transition age youth. These are developmental stages. The transition age youth is 18 to 25-year-olds, and the older adult is not technically 65 up. It can also be persons that have medically compromised, as well as they should be older. It could be 55, 60, 65 and up. But persons who are older can also be in regular RRP. They don't have to be in the specialized. So then there's developmental disability, mental health. This is another type of dual diagnosis where a person has both mental health, mental illness, and also may have developmental disability or a intellectual disability. The one in the middle there, integrated treatment for co-occurring disorders, ITCOD, the acronym, is for a dual diagnosis with substance use. So this is specialized treatment. It's only in the 2 counties, in Frederick and Montgomery. And, you can see the counties, of course, where these specialties are. And so it doesn't matter if you're from some other county, you can certainly be referred to these counties. And then, of course, the deaf and hard of hearing. This is specialized because the housing there, the staff all are well-versed in sign language, and they've got these special safety features of the smoke detectors and all those sorts of things, so that the persons can, are safe, given all circumstances. And the older adult, like I already mentioned, is for persons who are older, but may also be younger than what we normally consider older, like me, but may have medical issues and have a walker, have a wheelchair, have need the accessibility. And so a lot of those type of houses do have all those kind of accommodations. Okay, now this is the next type of housing. This is a completely different thing. This is recovery residences. And this is new to me. And I'm going to try and get through this and give you the gist of this. And then at the very end, the contact information is a colleague of mine at BHA, Behavioral Health Administration, who she oversees this. So recovery residences this is for substance use. Now the person could be co-occurring, as it says, but it is primarily a person has an alcohol or drug disorder, and they need treatment for it. So these are going to be in a drug and alcohol free house, and these are required. This is in the COMAR regulations and the recovery residents. These are to support persons who have substance use issues primarily, and in order for them to remain abstinent and in recovery. So there's an accreditation and licensing. These are big things that go along with this. And to tell you that recovery residences are exempt from requirements, meaning that a person can open a recovery residence without being licensed is true. But to be certified is one of the things we're going to be talking here, is the Maryland certification for recovery residences. And it's a voluntary program where, there's benefits to being certified because, anyways, you'll see. The legislature in Annapolis came up with the bill, recovery residences. This was in 2016, excuse me. And the department does a credentialing of an entity and administers certification. We, BHA, Behavioral Health Administration, is the approved entity that does the certification. And there are national standards from NAR, as you can see, Nationalized Recovery Residences. So it's based on nationwide stuff. And recovery residence certification requirements. This is telling you about the housing itself, that in order for the housing to receive any form of state funds, or to operate a certified one, or to advertise themselves as such, they have to meet the certification requirements. And another House bill, legislature, Recovery Residents Rights Protection Act lists. We have a list of these certified recovery residences. So that is, and there's the link from our website where you can see the list of all these residences that are certified. So there are others, but the certified ones get to be on our registry. So it's a good way to advertise. And when you see at the bottom, it says ASAM. This is the, oh my, I'm even going to get stuck on the ASAM and what it means, and that's bad. They won't like that. But probably alcohol and substance abuse. It's the levels of care for substance use. The 3-point whatever services, that's how they do their levels of care in substance use, is residential. It's 3.1, 3.3, 3.5, 3.7. So those are the types, so they can provide those levels of care information. So anyway, here's and then within, we talk about levels of care, there's larger levels of care, but then even within this recovery residences, they have their own levels. 4, in fact, you'll see. Level 1 is a peer-run recovery residence. I don't know if you've heard of Oxford houses, but they are run by and for the people that live there. They do not employ any staff. Everybody contributes. Level 2, the recovery residence, there's a house manager and a structured living, and they offer all the self-help things that are always offered. Level 3, though, is going to be staff supervised, and it's much more organized hierarchy of how the staff do that. And level 4 as you can see, each time it goes a higher level, there is going to be more structure within the house offering the support services for persons who are in recovery from substance use. These are the counties. This is an interesting thing. Again, you don't have to be from one of these counties, but these are the counties where they are located. So, looks to me like we've got Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's. That's all Southern Maryland. Wycomico and Worcester for the lower shore. Montgomery and Prince George's, of course, around the metro area, and Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Carroll, and Hartford up in the central location, and Garrett actually out in the Garrett and Frederick for Western Maryland, Washington County, Western Maryland. Okay, the Recovery Net, MDRN, is the adjunct of this Maryland Recovery Net. This is a partnership with State Care Coordination. State care coordinators are like I would say like a case managers for persons with substance use. So they work with the recovery residents statewide and provide limited time access to certified things. They fund things. So in recovery, if the person cannot afford, if there is no other ways to pay for it, Maryland Recovery Network does pay for the first couple of months of a person being in the housing. And then after that, there's an expectation that they would move to getting work and staying, if they're going to stay longer, and they can stay longer, to support themselves being in the program. And hopefully within a couple of months of service being paid for, they're able to do that. Maryland Recovery Net service recipients they get the care coordination, and they get support in housing recovery services. And they'll link them to other housing options when they're ready to move out. All services designated assist recipients in remaining engaged in their recovery and moving towards self-sufficiency. Eligibility, this is for the recovery network. Recovery residents be 18 years of age, have a substance use disorder. Real basic stuff here. They have to be engaged. They have to be in another service, at least within our system. Like they could be outpatient mental health, or other types of intensive outpatient, or some other service that is funded through the public system. Be a current resident and have verification of income. And they have to, it has to be at least at or below 200% of poverty level. And it's voluntary. They have to request the service. So state funds are used for this to move people, and this goes through that administrative service organization, Optum, where the state care coordinators approve the persons being in the housing, and then submit it through the Optum, the ASO, and then the person is given the 60 days funding for being in the system. Okay, now we're good. That's a whole bunch of new slides that went into my presentation that still relatively new to me, and yet is important that we share the recovery services, support services as well. Now back to more of my bailiwick, which is working with persons that are mostly serious mental illness and it could be co-occurring. We have Continuum of Care. Now this is focus here, of course, is with persons who have had homelessness. So the Continuum of Care, the old Shelter Plus Care, in Maryland, we oversee 300 units with HUD funding. And you see the counties that we do not fund: Montgomery, Garrett, Howard, and Baltimore City. They have their own funding. They have their own relationships with HUD. So they do offer this as well, but they do not receive funding from BHA, my agency. This provides rental assistance for permanent housing for individuals and families with one member who has a serious mental illness or co-occurring disorder and is homeless. So this is like a subsidized housing where you get your own apartment, and we'll talk more later about how that works out. But it's where the person, it's a household income, but it is 30% of income goes towards rent and utilities, and the rest is covered by HUD. More information, of course, on Continuum of Care, you have to contact. There should be a a liaison or a person who's a coordinator for this at each one of the core service agencies or local behavioral health authorities across the state. So if you're interested in seeing if you or your loved one is eligible for this, and they be homeless and have a serious mental illness or co-occurring, then contact the core service agency or local behavioral health authority. And there should be a list of those on our website as well. Now, this is probably, well, I would say my favorite, but this is what we're really looking forward to. People moving towards permanent supportive housing. It's one thing to say independent living where you're on your own, but it's another thing to say permanent supportive housing where you're on your own, but you get supports. So PSH, which is the acronym, but I certainly want to call it what it is, permanent supportive housing, where individuals within our system, they are the leaseholder, they have the keys, they have the lease, it's only their place. The housing units are subsidized or affordable as defined certainly by themselves that they can afford to live there, not pay like 80% of all their income just to live in a house. Services are available. Support services can be psychiatric rehab, which is PRP, which doesn't mean going to the day program. They can come to you, or you can go to a day program, psychiatric rehab programs, mental health case management, targeted case management, or assertive community treatment or mobile treatment. These are other types of services that are available. All right. Now, what we got here? No, hold on. Here we go. Sorry, I jumped ahead quickly here somehow. All right. I'm going to tell you about the Olmstead Act. The federal law is that the states are required to provide services in integrated community settings. Permanent supportive housing is evidence-based practice under SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, for assisting persons with severe mental illness to maintain housing in integrated settings in the community of their choice. Hold on a second. Some water. SAMHSA again is Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, it's the federal government. They have the evidence-based practice. Sorry, there's a bunch of acronyms there. Excuse me. The evidence-based practice toolkit is on at this link, and like I said, you'll get this later. So if you want to look into all the details of that, but these are some of the key elements of the evidence-based practice PSH. Tenants have their own lease in their own name with their full rights to tenancy under landlord-tenant law, all the fair housing laws. Leases do not have any special provisions, same as anybody else. Support services are available, accessible, but are voluntary, not required. Some of those other programs you were talking about, you must accept some sort of service. This, it's all voluntary. I know it's offered, and the hope is that you'll use what you need when you need it, but it's voluntary, and you can't be evicted for refusing any services. Rules in the housing are the same for anybody else. So there's that. There's natural. There's the consequences of everything of like making too much noise at night, or there's lots of rules within any kind of property management housing, but still it's the rules are the same for anyone, whether you have a mental illness or you don't. The housing is not time limited, so it's renewable as the lease is renewable. So owners have options to stop end leases or to change leases, but basically it's the same as everyone else. Prior to moving in, tenants are asked about their preferences. This is usually done in a person-centered planning to offer the same range of choices available to others in the same income level, and the same housing market. So it's not that you're able to move to any and all neighborhoods in Maryland, and we all know that Maryland is expensive, but there are some places that are more expensive than other places. But if you're having the subsidy or affordability, wherever you can move, even when you have a more fixed income, with subsidy, you can move to a place with that can be afforded using HUD if you have that kind of support. And I don't mean just Section 8 certificates, and we'll talk about all those things as well a little bit. Anyway, housing is affordable. Tenants, and the goal is no more than 30% of their household income. That could be everybody in the house. They have incomes, a couple of disability incomes, or a job and a disability income, or just SSI, which is only a little under $800 a month. And that's what goes towards rent and utilities, meaning gas, electric, water. And I know that there's a whole math formula for that, and I can describe that if need be at some point. Housing is integrated, meaning that it's scattered site. It's throughout the community. Anywhere else anyone else is living, it is not in a certain place. So it is like just like anywhere else in an apartment complex. If you're renting an apartment within a house or anything like that, it's right within any of the regular places where persons without mental health disabilities are living. And then finally, this page, tenants have a choice about their services, and of course, the case management or sort of community treatment, which is like mobile treatment, only a little better. And all that is person-centered, focused around what the individual needs. Tenants' needs change over time, so they can need more or less intensive services. And support services are designed to promote recovery. And finally, one of the things is the provision of the housing and the support services are separate, being that provided separate property management and support service. So there are some agencies that do service, the support service, and also do the housing, landlord, but they must be separate offices. They must be kept separate. You're dealing with these folks for paying your rent and housing maintenance, and these folks for support service. It's probably better that you're completely different. You have the property management under the complex, the apartment complex, and then the support service is brought to you. But in some cases, they are in the same place, but they don't want those roles to overlap. Anyway, those are just some of the key elements of permanent supportive housing through evidence-based practice. This is what we are promoting. There are some other variant versions of this, but this is the ideal. Okay, then associated with this, there's different approaches to it: project-based, sponsor-based, tenant-based. Tenant-based is like a Section 8 certificate or voucher, where you can move at the end of a lease to another place, and it's the tenant-based is it goes with the individual. The project-based is it's located only in this house, or only in this apartment that you're in. The apartment, this is like HUD 811, if you've heard that term. There is the apartments are set up so that while you're living here, you're getting the 30% subsidy. You move out, you don't get it, but you live here, you do get it. Sponsor-based is when a nonprofit agency, which is what I was talking about, where they do both services, and they have a bought or leasing the housing and doing the services. So these are just different approach methods to this. And then we promote really this scattered site, but just to let you know that there are a single site where there is one building or complex where persons of all one sort may live there. The only time I've heard this is being promoted is like for veterans, and I wouldn't even say that it's no rule about that, because sometimes the veterans want to be with other veterans, but what we're talking about here is persons with serious mental illness, and we do not want them to we don't want them to be together in a single site housing place. This is where the integrated, meaning within the community. So anyway, so that's those two different approach methods. The assessment, the housing assessment, is to be person-centered. So there's documents about this. There's ways to it can be Googled, but I'm telling you, when we talk about that housing specialists or case managers who are working with someone, they really need to do the face-to-face interview. They need to talk to the person about, and when I say strengths and assets, preferences, needs, challenges, and challenges we're going to get into a little bit more. What has been a problem in the past? What needs to be addressed? what do they need? Well, what's a deal breaker? Got to have my dog, got to have an elevator, have to have a first floor, have to have certain things you must have. And then your strengths, like what is it you're good at and all those kind of things. Educating them about the options within the county they live in, within the community they want to live in, with what their money they have and how they're going to be able to utilize if they pay 30% for rent, and then how are they going to budget the rest of it, and developing strategies for accessing programs. So here's your common, I'm sorry to be going through this so fast, but I want to leave some room at the end for questions. And there's a lot to cover in this. And anyway, you'll see. And you will have access to this PowerPoint within a week or several days from now on the NAMI site, I believe. So more common challenges for housing is, well, lack of affordable housing in Maryland. This is just, if you don't have a subsidy, how to find housing in Maryland that is, if you've seen the prices of rental units, it's more than some people's mortgages. So it is difficult. And there are some counties that are more conducive than others to having affordable housing. Social Security benefits, if we're talking SSI, it is very low. It is, I think, $794. I'm pretty sure that's correct for the current year we're in. That is below the federal poverty level. But that's what SSI is in Maryland this year. Criminal background checks, always a big one. A lot of people have a lot of things in their background. Credit checks and rental histories. If you've ever been evicted before, if you don't have any credit, if you have bad credit, those kind of things. Utility arrearages, which you don't get to say that word much, arrearages, but meaning you owe Potomac or BG&E or Delmarva, one of the big utility companies, you owe them from some past experience. And you're not going to be able to get a new account for a new one until you pay that one off, that kind of thing. Documentation, always key, having all the latest of all the things you need. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And housing waiting lists, this would be for when you're talking about a given county, like Prince George's and Baltimore City, their Section 8 waiting lists are like closed. Many counties, Section 8 waiting list, that's just for that, is closed. There's other housing, but a lot of times there's waiting lists. And other ones, you just get on the waiting list and it can still be a long time. It could be a year, a couple of years, or many years. Okay, just to touch on it quickly, documentation. This is not the total, but this is a lot of the major important ones, okay? Birth certificate, okay? You gotta have that. Valid photo ID. This is primarily one you get through MVA, and now they have the real ID, which is just still a driver's license or a state identification card, but they go through a lot of, there's a lot more stuff to go through it now. I was glad to get that just for the pandemic myself, because it's only been in effect for less than 2 years, I think, or just 2 years. The Social Security card, gotta have like an original, and one for every household member. Proof of citizenship if applicable. Child custody, if you have children and they're going to be listed on the lease, you got to show that they're yours, you have guardianship. And if you were married or not married any longer, you may need to show that you are married or no longer married, so that whether you're divorced or not. Okay, you understand that. And that's not in every situation, obviously. A lot of people are single. Okay, so hold on. Identifying challenges. It's important to sit down with whoever is the assistant, the case manager, whoever, and identify these things. Ask some serious questions. Is there a problem? Has there been bad credit? Or go to one of the free credit things and look and see if you have credit, if it's good, if it's not good, because there will be property management that will say no to that. And there's ways around that. We'll talk about that as well. Criminal background. That's hard to do. You can't change history. Personal rental history, you've been evicted, it's on the record somewhere, you can't change that either. But there's ways to work around these things. Credit issues, okay. I would go as quickly through this as I can, because I see the time on my own clock here, and I know that we've only got like 25 minutes left. Obtaining a copy of free copy of your credit report to see where it stands today. Legal services if possible. There's the legal aid, and there's also the Disability Rights Maryland if you need legal services for any reason. Identifying community resources that could help assist pay outstanding debt. Maryland Energy Assistance Program, faith-based organizations, a variety of things that Department of Social Services, things that can help with some monies. They're not going to, you may have a large bill that they cannot undo. Contacting previous landlords or creditors to see if they waive it or they would do a reduction in a payment plan, something that puts you back in good stead with them so that the credit changes. Determine if, okay, this is a good one. Determine if a disability or medical issue impacted your ability to maintain good credit. And 6, a letter for reasonable accommodation. We'll talk more about this. Asking for a reasonable accommodation for poor or lack of credit is something that can be done, has been done, and you probably don't know about it, but it is the thing to do to sometimes get past this. If it is disability related. If a person was, one of their symptoms is they go on a spending spree, and I know, and if they ran up a large bill and they have bad credit as a result, but it was when they were manic, and that they need to, and now they're in treatment and they're paying it off. Asking for reasonable accommodation for a landlord is something that can be done, and we'll explain more. Criminal background. Okay, it's hard to, like I said, you can't change history, but developing the trusting relationship, that's with the case manager or the person who's working with you. You sponge whatever criminal records can be. What they call a lot of times nuisance crimes, much lesser crimes that can be expunged after a period of time. Got them off the record. So the Maryland Judiciary Case Search System is and I believe I have at the very end, I've got a whole bunch of resources, including the links for the connection for these things. Maryland Judiciary Case Search, and you go search yourself, search the person you're working with to determine whether they have what is in their background. And they'll have other things like, divorce or things of that nature are in your legal background. But what we're looking for here is crime. And and sometimes things are no prost, steaded, charges were dropped, but it's still there on the record. So those things can be expunged. Those things we gotten rid of because they're no longer, that you weren't charged. I mean, they were original charges. You may have been arrested, but it didn't go through. So those things, but they're still there. Doesn't look good. So getting rid of that is good. Other things are where it's been adjudicated and you were found guilty or something like that. It's there, and they can't get rid of that. And we know there's a wide variety of crime and serious things. Open warrants and getting legal counsel. I mean, there's things to get around this. And then in continuing understanding the rules regarding criminal activity and housing, determining if the change in the health situation impacted it, support commitment to accepting rehabilitation support services, assisting with connecting with community services. And I would say that I will talk again about reasonable accommodation, but when a person has had a crime in their history and their background that was when their symptoms of their mental illness were exacerbated or were happening, they and that's what may have inspired the crime, and now they are no longer symptomatic. Now they're in treatment. Now the medication is working, everything's good, and they're no longer like that. And if it can be and the symptoms go with the mental illness, go with the disability, when you can show that it was connected, and you don't have to get into all the detail. We'll talk about reasonable accommodation. You can ask for them to waive this when you're trying to get into a new apartment. Anyway, here we go. The same goes with rental histories. This is if you've been, if you've ever been evicted, if you can't pay your rent on time, of course, that's going to affect your credit. Getting along with neighbors, maintaining a safe environment, understanding your tenant, obligations, because you have rights, but you have responsibilities. Determining whether, again, medical or disability situation impacted the tenancy. Help to write a letter to explain the circumstances. Reach out to previous landlords to see about getting a positive reference if you had a good relationship with a previous landlord, or trying to work things out with one for a payment plan. Okay, reasonable accommodation, and this is one of the things people need to focus on. A lot can be said about having the service animal. I see this cute little dog, everything, but a reasonable accommodation is a change, exception, or adjustment to a rule, policy, practice, or service. So all those things, the rules about getting in to a new lease is, they'll stop you right there with the credit or the criminal background and say, no. It's like, this is a way to ask and get beyond that. Making changes in rules, procedures, policies, so that if it was disability related. Okay, applying for housing. If you apply for housing, and they deny. Screening, they do the screening in the background. Household members, you need live-in aid, service or emotional support animals. And if it's a no pets allowed place, they can still allow certainly a service animal. There's almost never a denial for a service animal, meaning like a seeing eye dog or something like that. But there's lots of emotional support animals. And those can be requested with a letter as well. Searching for housing, sometimes it's like 2 months. You get 2 months with this certificate to search. That's it. Well, if you're, depending on the issue, you can ask for a longer period of time. Okay, so to do this, you've got to put it in writing. To ask for reasonable accommodation, you got to put it in writing to the property owner or the property management. The request must share the fact that you have a disability. You don't have to go to the details about it. You don't say, oh, I have schizophrenia and this is what happens. And I take this. No, none of that. This is, you have a disability. Now, they can ask further about that, but I mean, it's not that you have to give that right away. You can say, I have a disability, because there are housing laws that protect persons with disabilities. Describe what you want changed and why you need to have the change. Like, you're denying me, and a lot of times this can be it's usually in reaction to, they've denied you because of the credit or criminal background, let's say. So you're asking, I want you to change your rule about not accepting persons like this because I have a disability. So in most cases, the property owner has the right to ask for proof for you need the reasonable accommodation. Your proof is that you can get your case manager or your psychiatrist, your medical doctor, write a letter on your behalf. They don't have to go into all the super details either, but they're a valid source of saying, yes, it's true what you're talking about. Now, I don't have a copy of it here, but my sample letter will show you where you can get that. And I do have it. I do have copies of this. I mean, it's generic, it's a template. So my sample letter for requesting reasonable accommodation to plan, you keep it, just to say about the letter, if you do write one of these letters, date it. It has to be a date on it, and you keep a copy of it. And so there's just, and actually you should copy CC other people on it. Okay, preparing to move. Okay, I know we're jumping here because there's a lot of more details on all these things, but we do need to get through this. So preparing to move, plan well, identify people to help you, connect with everybody who's going to be involved in helping you. Don't leave anybody out. I mean, it might be family, it might be friends, it might be staff at a program. Plan a meeting to figure out who's going to do what, identify items you need for the transition to move from wherever it is to wherever. You're in your family home, you're going to move out. You're in the residential program, you're going to move out. You're in the homeless shelter, you're going to move out. Wherever you're moving from to your own place. And then you have to go over lots of details, when the move is going to happen, how you're going to get there, who will help you pack up all your stuff. And then services, like If you move from one county to another, where's the pharmacy? How are you going to get to your doctor's appointments? All those things. And you may change and move to, I mean, just say you may move across town, but you may move to another county, or you may move to another town in the same county. And you may need to, and transportation might be an issue. So you may need to have ways of being able to get back and forth to especially your primary care and your mental health providers. And also banking accounts, having the money for security deposit, depending on what that situation is. And then, this is very brief, I've only got one slide on each of these things. Good tenancy, to be a good tenant, and this is from the landlord's perspective, paying the rent on time. You can get a reasonable accommodation. Your check comes on the 3rd of the month. You can't pay on the 1st of the month. You can pay not only on the 3rd of the month, you can pay on the 6th of the month, but you have to ask for it, saying that my check comes on the 3rd, it goes into my thing, I have to write you a check and mail it. It takes a couple of days to get there. Okay, they can do that. More reasonable accommodation. Maintaining the unit, meaning not, you have to take care of your own living space, being friendly with, engaging with neighbors, or staying to yourself, but not getting into any negative relationships. Complying with the terms of the lease and understanding what the lease is, communicating clearly with the property managers, and understanding your responsibilities. So a lot more can be said about this. There's whole trainings on how to be a good tenant. This is where the letter, my sample letter is. Now I'll show you what it looks like. This is a booklet that is on the Maryland Department of Disabilities website. So I have a link to this if somebody needs it. Handbook for people with disabilities, becoming a tenant and staying housed. That's the link right there. And it is very much shows you all the nuances from budgeting to subsidies to asking for reasonable accommodations to everything. So this is an invaluable resource, and we highly recommend it. That's the woman right there. This happens to be a Weinberg housing, which is like the HUD 811s, and she has her keys. And she's a very happy camper, happy person. Okay, so just going to touch briefly on, more can be said about all these. The Weinberg Initiative, the Housing First Pilot Project, and the Section 811 Project Rental Assistance. This is the HUD PRA. Okay, so Weinberg Initiative, this housing is Weinberg, the Harry and Chet Weinberg Foundation, very benevolent people. They kicked in many millions of dollars for various things. But this housing, they help with the building of the housing. This housing is nice and new housing that's built, and then it goes into the mortar and bricks, the building of the housing. And it's a guaranteed subsidy attached to that housing for the 20, 30 years. Okay, so the rental housing is affordable, built in. And there's a little bit more here. Again, this is non-elderly disabled persons of a certain income. Okay, so this is meaning that, and that's 15 to 30% of area gross median income. That's the median, the average income. This is much lesser than that, much less than that. Again, it's always going to be the 30% thing. Non-elderly, I know that sounds tough, but the ages are 18 to 62 in most of this type of housing we're talking about here. The Housing First Pilot Project, this is BHA, my agency, along with the Baltimore City local behavioral health authority called Behavioral Health System Baltimore. Also in Montgomery and Prince George's, just in those three places, Baltimore City, Montgomery, and Prince George's, they have the Housing First Pilot Project. It's 72 individuals. This is specific to 72 individuals who are homeless and have a serious mental illness or co-occurring disorder, are able to get the subsidy. And this is done like in this special pilot project. So there's, this is stuff you'll be able to read about more later. This is very limited, of course, to only 72 housing units. And this is more the subsidy than it is because the person can move anywhere that's going to accept the subsidy. So, and there's more things about the eligibility. The person has to either be working with SOAR, which is another, program to plug. And I believe my colleague, Carolyn Bolus, is doing another presentation elsewhere during the NAMI conference on SOAR, which is Supplemental Security Income, Social Security, Disability Insurance, SSI, SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery. They do they can help people get the SSI, SSDI quickly. You're either working with them, or you've been discharged from state hospital, or you're transitioning out of an RRP program. So those are the things for this housing first pilot project, and it's close to full, and so it's not like it's a big viable option for people right now because it's pretty limited here anyway. Okay, and quickly, so we get some talking time. Section 811. These are some pictures of the housing, all the people that are involved in putting this together. It's been around for a little while. You can read about this later. How we can DHCD, Department of Housing and Development, Maryland Department of Disabilities, and our Maryland Department of Health came together to create this housing. You can see at the bottom there is the Maryland, or down here, Maryland Housing Search and www.socialserve.com. These are ways to find the housing, and I want to get to the questions, so I'm going to just try and move quickly through this. Apply to HUD. We applied to HUD and got a lot of money, and now made 300 units, and now we've just received an additional almost $10 million to do another 100 units. So there will be 100 more units coming, and it's moving through 2021. So 400 units is going to be the total now. It's located in brand new multi-housing developments, and some they have, there's some rehabilitation going on of housing, but for the most part, it is brand new. And it's integrated in that within any given complex, apartment complex, no more than 25% of these units are designated for persons with disabilities. Applicants, of course, for this non-elderly, the 18 to 62, disabled by defined by HUD, Medicaid, 30% of AMI. It's again a 30% thing. It's pretty standard HUD rule. The primary populations were those in nursing facilities who can move out, those at risk of really going into nursing homes, and those moving from into independent living from either DDA or the you see BHA residential rehab programs at the bottom there, or the brain injury waiver, these types of housing into their own thing, or homeless as defined by the HARF Act, and that is these specific definitions of homelessness. Okay, and that is it. So I'm finally through it all. And now these pages here are resources. There's 3 pages of this, and you can see there's links to almost all these things, whether it is the credit stuff, the Judiciary Case Search, Disability Rights Maryland, finding a public housing authority, Weinberg Initiative, SNAP program, fair housing laws, social serve, okay, all these things, and the Maryland, the Centers for Independent Living. And then last slide, my contact information, and this is my colleague at Behavioral Health Administration. So anything that was about recovery residences, Patricia Cagneso, who goes by Trish, she's the one who could tell you infinitely more about Maryland Certification of Recovery Residences and the Maryland Recovery Network, MCOR and MDRN. Okay. Linda?
Thank you. That was so informative, and we've gotten so many great questions. Let's just go straight to them right away.
Very good.
First one is, what are the housing options for an individual with severe mental illness, but who lacks insight into their own condition and whose family can pay for services, but the person doesn't think they need help, but they actually need a lot of support with medication and other support issues, cooking, etc. And I think one of the issues here is also in our question too. It's a focus on the fact that the family does have the means of supporting this person. Does that kind of disqualify them? Do they actually have to become homeless to be eligible for the housing?
No. Homelessness is only qualified for some things. And it's great that they have family resources because, but what we're talking about here is you just can't, and this is more of a clinical issue, you can't just give insight to somebody. So it depends on, they may lack the insight, but are they, and I hate the word compliance, but are they willing to take medicine? There's a whole vast variety of things where we're really looking at We want the person to, I would think that the RRP, if they really need that level of support over some time to learn skills and to maybe develop insight, it might be best in that. And it's if they're an adult and they're eligible for Social Security disability or SSI and medical assistance, it doesn't matter if the family has money. The individual is an adult who is eligible themselves, and they may be living at home, and that may be part of it. I don't know, but this is very much a scenario I've heard before, where families are very concerned about their family member, and the family member is not a willing player because of their lack of insight ability. Either, I wouldn't call that insight ability, but to be able to understand what they need in terms of assistance. I could talk further with the family if there was need. How about if we go on to another one?
Sure. The next question we have is, can you have a roommate when using PSH?
Yes. Now, it's people choose the boyfriend, girlfriend, or just a support person, or a live-in aid, or a roommate. But if you're getting a PSH that is affordable, if it is a 2-bedroom unit, they probably are going to need to be on the lease. It's one thing. They may need to be on the lease, and the income, the 30% income, is based on household income. So it would be your income and your roommate's income, 30% of that combined. Just to keep in mind, because it's not just you, and let's say you have SSI, 30% of that, and then you can have somebody else join. No, they're going to be looked at them as well, and they may have or not have a disability. They may have a job, they may not have a job, but you don't want to have them with such a high income that it puts you out of the eligibility for the subsidy. It depends, but yes, you can have a roommate. Yes. Go on.
There is so much to navigate in this complicated maze of options. Are there supports for the individual with mental illness and/or their families or caretakers to get help with navigating the system?
That's key. That is why, at the least, I'm thinking targeted case management. You don't have to have one of the severe mental illnesses to be eligible for targeted mental health case management. You don't have to have Medicaid to have targeted case management. And we have that in every county. So they can work with a person towards working through all the housing things. If the person happens to be in an ACT team or mobile treatment, a lot of them have housing specialists that can work with the person. And if they're in psych rehab, PRP, psychiatric rehabilitation program, or RRP, residential rehab, they should be working with them in part of their treatment plan, or rehab plan, to moving out. But if the person's just flying solo, they go to the clinic, they see their psychiatrist, they see their therapist, they take their medicine, that's all they got. And the therapist and the psychiatrist usually are not in the community. They're not out there in the street working to figure out what to do next. I mean, they know these things. They know what's important. They know housing's important. But I think they can refer to a case manager, mental health case manager. We have them in every county. Contact the local behavioral health authorities. And at the very least, you got that. There's more housing specialists elsewhere. But case managers should be able to help with housing and navigating. This is very complex. You're correct. And the way I just went through it all just gave a lot of information that, if you could just slow down and do all of this longer, I do have a longer presentation. I do a full training, but the NAMI conference is giving it to you in a nutshell. Go on, Linda.
What if a person needs long-term care?
Okay, depending on what long-term care is, if it is residential rehabilitation programs, still their goal is to move the person out to lesser restrictive housing, to permanent supportive housing when ready. But people have been known to be in RRP for long periods of time, 5 years, 10 years, longer. So, but in terms of The state hospitals, no, people are not staying in places like that for any longer. I mean, they may stay there because of some legal reality, but people are not staying in any type of inpatient facility for any length of time. But a residential rehabilitation program does not have a time limit on it. You have to remain eligible and willing, but there's no time limit.
What questions should one ask? What keywords or phrases should you use when exploring housing options for your loved one?
That's a really good question. And I'd want to give that a more thorough answer. But yeah, because key questions, key words, yeah, you're right. And a lot of them were embedded in here. I think if I had, I can't share it right now, but a copy of a housing, person-centered housing assessment. First, being honest with the individual about what their past has been, and what their needs are, and what their strengths are, about what their challenges either existed in the past and likely may exist in the future. Being honest and talking about them, find out what supports they need. But then things like the reasonable accommodation, ways to get beyond some of the history. And if you need further legal supports, the kind of things to say to them. Excuse me, but there are things that there are keywords and things to look into. It's going to be too involved of a question. I'd be glad to talk about it on an individual basis.
Sure. What opportunities are there for family members to advocate for more readily available housing for people experiencing mental illness?
Well, I hope they can. I don't know to advocate. I appreciate that. Any advocacy is good. Whether that would be legislatively in Annapolis, one place to testify. Sorry, or working. I don't know. NAMI is also one of them, but also opportunities for advocacy. I like that. I don't know that I have a great answer for that at the moment. Sorry.
Okay. The last question we have is, are RRP beds still being prioritized for those exiting state hospitals above those in the community?
They are for the intensive level beds. Sorry. Someone's getting to me. They are currently, but sometimes state hospitals, even for the intensive level beds, are not, sometimes the state hospital does not have referrals. And there are, the residential programs do get community referrals, and they're trying to prioritize even the community referrals based on certain other things. I mean, whether they have some other type of need or homelessness or something. They don't have to be homeless. They don't have to be in a state hospital. But yes, state hospitals are still a top priority, because right now, especially right now, we're kind of in a pinch to get people out of jails into state hospitals to be evaluated for the legal system. So we've got to get people out of state hospitals. So RRP has always been seen as a good place to go, but we're also working with the judiciary and the state hospitals to refer to other places, assisted living and things like that. Okay. I think we're probably close to time's up, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Russ. That was such good information. If you didn't have a chance to ask your question, you can still submit it today to connection@namimd.org. When the workshop closes, there will be an opportunity to fill out a survey. If you need to receive CEU credits, you must complete the survey. The next workshop is going to start at 2:20, and you can check out the NAMI land and the other resources in the virtual exhibitor hall in the meantime, and including the resource scavenger hunt. All right, thanks again to the whole audience, and to Russ, and to our tech expert, Judy Davidson.
Thank you both,
Thanks
ladies.
very much. Have a good day.